the Green Ranger. Not the Ranger we're all familiar with from the live action series though. This is a new version of the Green Ranger. In the comic, instead of Tommy becoming the White Ranger, thereby replacing Green, Tommy dies and is resurrected becoming the White Ranger after the events of the Shattered Grid. But mysteriously, a Green Ranger soon appears, taking out the panda monster the team had combined forces to take on single-handedly. As it turns out, Billy had been assisting Grace Sterling, the head of a tech company called Promethea, to power up the Dragon Power Coin in order to create a new Green Ranger. This new amped up Green Ranger returns during the Rangers' battle with a superpowered Chaos Putty before revealing himself to be a fellow student at Angel Grove, Matt Cook. Matt was already a strong kid before becoming the Green Ranger, having been captured by Rita Repulsa and withstanding months of experiments before finally escaping, and also being quite heroic, saving a kid from, being crushed by fallen rubble before being teleported to Promethea for Grace to offer him this brand new position as a ranger. He's got an amped up version of the Dragon Dagger, an amped up suit. It's also just so cool seeing the White Ranger and Green Ranger fighting alongside each other with their respective Zords.
Coming in at number 9 is Doggy Kruger. I'm leading with my favorite here. Anubis Doggy Kruger is one of the most memorable characters in the Power Rangers world, mostly because he is a literal blue dog-like alien, but also because he's freaking cool. He's technically part of an alien race called the Syrian, but while not being human, he still commands massive respect from the human Rangers as the chief of the Power Rangers SPD, Space Patrol Delta, serving as their commander on Earth. He has extremely outstanding leadership skills and a dedication to seeing the SPD Rangers succeed and remain safe at any cost. Instead of possessing a whole whack of gadgets and weapons, the Shadow Ranger's Galaxy single sword style is just so far and above anything that his opponents can come up with that it makes him one of the strongest Rangers in the Power Rangers universe, at least in terms of combat. Using this style, he has defeated 100 aneroids on his own. It has even given him the moniker of Hell's Guard Dog. How awesome is that?
The White Ranger, Tommy Oliver. It was only a matter of time before Tommy was mentioned, right? Tommy is probably the most famous Ranger ever. He was the Green Ranger and White Ranger, plus several others in the live action series. An absolute legend of the franchise. But back to the comic. When Tommy is seemingly taken out by Lord Drakon after being stabbed through the back with Saba, the Rangers mourn his death, but when Drakon sent the Ranger Slayer back in time to eliminate the Rangers, she breaks free of his influence and ends up changing the past version of Tommy's fate for the better, piercing him with a green crystal-infused arrow that gives him the vision of this, dark future, and leading to his soul becoming this entity that haunts Drakon, eventually giving Tommy enough power to resurrect himself. After the Shattered Grid arc, Tommy reappears now as the White Ranger and soon takes over the team upon Jason, Zach, and Trini's departure. The White Ranger is just awesome. He's got the baddest Zord, the coolest sword, and Saba that can talk, and it's Tommy Oliver. He kicks butt. What else can I say?
Number 7, Kimberly Hart, the Pink Ranger. Kimberly Ann Hart, or just Kimberly Hart in some iterations, is one of the first main Rangers to appear, and the same is true of her in the comics. Kimberly was the first Pink Ranger, and while we talked about an alternate version of Kimberly known as Ranger Slayer from the World of the Coinless reality from the comics, we did not talk about her main reality counterpart, who, like her alternate, is also super powerful and committed to fighting against the forces of evil and helping to protect innocent people and of course her friends. In the main continuity, Kimberly is not coinless, instead getting her power from the pterodactyl powered coin given to her by Zordon. To match it, she can also call on the pterodactyl Dinozord. She typically is best known for fighting with her power bow, but also possesses her blade blaster as well. Kimberly was also one of my favorite Rangers growing up from the 90s series. I even used to have a little plush doll version of her that I would actually take everywhere with me, and now I'm wondering if she's also the reason that I generally like playing as like a ranger, like the class in games, and that I always prefer to use a bow, which is a thing.
Number 6, Magna Defender. I don't care if you don't count him as a Ranger, the Magna Defender is one of the best characters from Lost Galaxy. He has the best aesthetic in terms of Rangers, and he has the coolest backstory, making him an awesome anti-hero in the Power Rangers canon. The Magna Defender fought in a battle that occurred over 3,000 years ago. The Magna Defender's homeworld was attacked and overrun by Scorpius and his monsters, with his son Zyka used as a shield to stop the Defender from attacking Scorpius's army. His son then have perished shortly afterward when he tried to attack Scorpius and save his father. So, of course, the Magna Defender swore revenge for both his son and their planet. Magna Defender is ruthless and will fight through the Rangers and civilians if it means he gets the revenge that he desires. Now, he doesn't have a morpher or a transformation. Instead, he possessed the body of Mike Corbett, the Red Ranger's brother, and used him to try and get the revenge that he wanted. But he left Mike's body and also left Mike with the power of the Magna Defender. Without a morpher or any transformation to rely on, he has to be very powerful. He has this awesome sword that obviously turns into a blaster as well, and he also wields the Toro Zord. Both of these are pretty darn powerful. He was also in that last battle against Drakon, and he essentially served as the 6th Ranger for the Lost Galaxy Rangers, so I'm calling him a Ranger. Damn it, you can't stop me.
Number 5. Billy Cranston, the Blue Ranger. Billy is often thought of as the brains of the core Power Rangers team, and he is also part of the original team of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, both in the show and in the comics. However, in the comics, a cool thing is that he's not really alone when it comes to this. In fact, while Billy is one of the most ingenious of the group, other Rangers also help him with his more intellectual projects and pursuits. Namely, I've seen Trini, the Yellow Ranger, help him multiple times, and although they were also close in the show, I feel like they're even closer in the comics. Billy was chosen to become the Blue Ranger thanks to his patience and his smarts. Among his friends, both of these traits are celebrated. Billy was given the Triceratops Power Coin by Zordon, and, to go with it, also pilots the Triceratops Dinozord. As time goes on, Billy becomes more confident and sure of himself, although initially he struggles to do so, as his smarts often seem to create barriers when it comes to communication and socializing between him and others. Why I really love Billy though. He grows so much throughout his time as a Power Ranger.
And at number 4 is Orion, the Super Megaforce Silver Ranger. Okay, some people may be a little annoyed by Orion's inclusion here, some might not. And it all comes down to an incredibly divisive power that this guy possesses. As most of you might know, the 6th Ranger in Power Rangers media is almost always the most powerful one. They can usually take on threats on their own that the team can't even handle together. Orion, who became the Super Megaforce Silver Ranger after the 6th Ranger key landed on his planet, had access to the Super Megaforce Gold form, which gave him the abilities of all 15 6th Rangers. Using a fused together Ranger key, Orion was able to access the power of 6, amping him up to incredibly ridiculous levels of powerful and giving him a super thick armor that has little images of all 15 Rangers' helmets on the front. It does look a little silly, I totally will admit that, and the power of 6 seemed a little silly to a lot of people as well, but given the lore with the grid and all that, it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility. Either way, it doesn't matter too much, as in the comics he didn't actually do much fighting. It was more just cool to just see him there. But at one point in time, he had the ability to be more powerful than almost all other Rangers, and that makes him super cool. Number 3, Jason Lee Scott. Jason Lee Scott is also one of the most powerful Rangers throughout all of Power Rangers media. He led the original team of Mighty Morphin Rangers against Rita Repulsa and many other foes. He took down a small army of monsters by himself, and he would even return later to become the Gold Zeo Ranger. In the comics though, he leads an army of Rangers against Lord Drakon's forces in a battle to save the entire Power Rangers multiverse. Before even becoming a Ranger, Jason was pretty adept with martial arts, and he had the leadership traits that made him the perfect choice to become the Red Ranger. He was even able to defeat Tommy, one of the strongest Rangers in combat, when he was brainwashed by Rita Repulsa. He is often considered by fans to be the best Red Ranger and the best Power Ranger ever, and in a contest run by ABC Family in 2004, Jason was voted the best Power Ranger of all time, but we know for a fact there's at least someone stronger than him.
The Emissaries. The Emissaries are these ancient warriors that represent the Morphin Masters, an ancient civilization dedicated to studying the Morphin grid. They each represent a different Ranger color, red, yellow, and blue, and what's cool about them is that they don't really have one solid form. They're constantly phasing in between different Ranger forms, making it cool spotting different Rangers from over the years, oh, that's Ninja Storm Red, or cool, that's Time Force Blue, They used to be, Rangers themselves, the Squadron Rangers, but during their battle with Dark Spectre, they essentially became conduits of the grid, just letting its power consume them, and they became basically one with it, now becoming these kind of celestial beings. The Emissaries are supremely extremely powerful guardians of the grid that exist outside of the realm of time and space, observing events across time and watching over the various ranger teams that fight to protect their worlds.
Number 1. Drakon. Who is the most powerful of the Mighty Morphin Rangers? It is without a doubt the Green Ranger Tommy, who, as we said before, becomes the White Ranger. But who is the most powerful ranger ever? Tommy, but not the regular Tommy. Instead, it's an evil, super villainous, tyrannical, alternate universe Tommy who becomes the insanely powerful Lord Drakon. Instead of breaking his connection to Rita Repulsa, this universe's Tommy stuck with her. This guy was able to breach the Morphin grid itself, which he did by killing at least one ranger on every team throughout the multiverse and stealing a morpher from each of them. Eventually, he became a god and was able to destroy the whole multiverse. Then, he used his power to create a new Earth where he was basically like Superman. Also, he looks super cool. Combining both the Green Ranger and the White Ranger looks with gold accents, it's gabella. A hell of a way to take the greatest ranger and make him the most despicable.
Number 9, Adam Park. The Black Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Green Zeo Ranger, and the Green Turbo Ranger. I feel like some people might automatically overlook Adam, especially because he came in as a replacement during Mighty Morphin, but he has shown time and time again why he is not only one of the best Power Rangers, but also one of the strongest. Not only did he become 3 different Rangers, but he has also shown how fearless he is. I mean, during Power Rangers in Space, he came back and ended up using his damaged power coin and morphed into the original Black Ranger once again. It was dangerous and painful, but Adam did it to save Carlos, the Black Space Ranger, even though it could have killed him. It eventually got repaired, and Adam even returned during Operation Overdrive, leading a team of legendary Power Rangers. He had big shoes to fill, and when he came in, everyone wanted to hate all the replacements. But Adam proved everyone wrong and became one of the coolest and most powerful Rangers. Number 8, Jen Scotts. In every season of Power Rangers, the red is always the leader. Well, in Time Force, it was actually a little bit different. Jen, the Pink Ranger, led the team, and honestly, it makes total sense. She has the most experience when it comes down to it, and she can make all the difficult choices. She not only protects the world of the future, but also the past. She leads her team all throughout time, and does that while also taking on a new member, Wes, who had really no idea what he was getting into when he joined. Even in the final battle against Ransik, all the other Rangers are on the ground injured, and Jen manages to muster enough energy to get back up and take on Ransik even without morphing. Like, come on, that is seriously impressive.
Number 7, Ranger Slayer. Kimberly Hart was the original Mighty Morphin Pink Ranger, and the Ranger that all the other guys in school had a crush on. But she is straight up a total badass. But for this point on the list, I want to talk about the Kimberly Hart of a different reality. In said alternate reality, the world of the Coinless, this version of Kimberly became a deadly ranger named the Ranger Slayer under the mind control of the incredibly powerful Drakon. As the Ranger Slayer, Kimberly piloted the Grave Zord and was also the leader of the Promethea Rangers team, which included another powerful ranger, Magna Defender. She also wielded the bow/sword of darkness. The Ranger Slayer initially worked for Lord Drakon before breaking free of his mind control, and after his fall, the Ranger Slayer takes the place of Lord Drakon in the new timeline.
Alright, the Death Ranger. This is one of the coolest Rangers I've ever seen. I always wanted there to be stuff like this in Power Rangers, like when I was a kid. So the Death Ranger was sealed away by the original Omega Rangers, but then Andros, the in-space Red Ranger, freed it, cutting a deal with the Death Ranger to avenge those responsible for the destruction of his planet in exchange for its freedom. Big mistake. Death Ranger ended up possessing the Omega Rangers and Zane, the Psycho Silver Ranger, turning them into evil soldiers he commanded at will. What makes Death Ranger so powerful is its ability to switch host bodies. You can destroy the body, but his essence still remains. He'll just move on to find another host to take on. When Andros managed to free Jason from Death Ranger's possession, the battle wasn't over, as Death Ranger just entered into its Zord instead. A sentient Zord. Pretty cool. More like a Transformer, I guess, at that point. It took our heroes combining their Zords to form the Dragon Thunder Zord in order to take it out. For now, that is.
Number 5, Merrick Balatin. There is a bit of a trend of the 6th Ranger being the most powerful of whoever the respective Ranger team is. These 6th Rangers have been able to take down foes by themselves that even a full team of 5 Rangers couldn't take on. One of my favorite 6th Rangers would have to be the 6th Wild Force Ranger, Merrick Balatin. Merrick was originally a noble warrior from the mythical nation of Animarium before he was corrupted by the wolf mask that he used to save his nation. He then became the monster known as Zen Aku. As Zen Aku, he was one of the most imposing enemies that the Wild Force Rangers ever faced, but luckily for all of us, he eventually purged the evil from within himself and became the Lunar Wolf Ranger for the team. Merrick got access to the Predazord, a combo Zord that had the Wolf, Hammerhead Shark, and Alligator Zords. Also, I have to tell you about his main weapon, the Lunar Q, as in Pool Q. It could be a saber, a sniper, or a pool cue, and it had some interesting but devastating attacks to say the least. It's also worth noting that being the Lunar Wolf, he stayed as a bit of a loner, being all brooding and cool, never fully integrating with the team of Rangers. You could even say that he was a lone wolf. Ooh, wordplay, nice.
The Omega Rangers are next on the list. The original Omega Rangers were powerful on their own, some of the earliest Rangers in existence, fighting in space against evil threats. The Omega Rangers lay dormant for many years, but became active again when 3 of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Jason, Zack, and Trini, took the mantles after leaving the original team, along with Kia being the blue Omega Ranger, who would soon turn on them. It's cool that they took that original departure of those cast members and MMPR and made it part of the story in like a really cool way. With the whole peace conference thing just being a cover-up for a much cooler mission. Being recruited by the Blue Emissary to become the Omega Rangers and protect the universe from evil. More specifically, protecting the grid from villains looking to gain power from it. These Rangers would prove to be some of the universe's most powerful heroes, but when the Death Ranger possessed them, it took the combined might of Andros, the MMPR team, Archon, Kevor, and Journey to take them on.
Number 3, Lord Drakkon. Lord Drakkon has seriously become one of the coolest and most popular additions to the Power Rangers mythology. What Boom Studios and Kyle Higgins did with him was amazing. And while yes, he technically possessed so many Ranger powers, and would be considered to be the most powerful in a sense, he was defeated. But that doesn't take away from how amazing he is. So if you don't know, Lord Drakkon is Tommy Oliver from an alternate reality. Basically, his story was the same up until he was defeated by Jason. In this reality, instead of joining the Rangers, he left. Rita found him again, and the two went on to take over the world. He got even more powerful when he attacked the command center when Zordon was giving Jason the White Ranger power. But Drakkon intervened and took that power for himself, merging along with the one he already had. And because of that, that gave him a seriously badass costume. His mission from then on was to destroy all the Rangers from every dimension, and stealing powers along the way. I won't give too much away, but in his quest to defeat the Rangers, he started the event known as Shattered Grid, which brought together every Ranger team ever to stop him. Number 2, Tommy Oliver. Tommy. Oh man, one of the cool things about Tommy is that he has been so many different Rangers that it gave a chance for fans to be introduced to him at different times, like different generations of fans. He was the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Mighty Morphin White Ranger, he was the Green Mighty Morphin Ranger, the White Mighty Morphin Ranger, the Red Zeo Ranger, the Red Turbo Ranger, and the Black Dino Ranger. His most famous and most powerful form is definitely the Green Ranger. He was the very first evil 6th Ranger to be introduced, and he made a very strong impression. As the Green Ranger, he constantly fought the original 5 and usually always won. I mean, Rita made him for the sole purpose of destroying them, but he did get defeated and eventually joined their side. He then continued to move up and lead multiple Ranger teams. I mean, he even helped create the Dino Rangers in Power Rangers Dino Thunder. He helped defeat Drakkon in Shattered Grid, and it was revealed in both the comics and TV show that he now possesses a Master Morpher, which is the first of his kind, which allows him to transform into any of his Ranger forms. Usually when a Ranger becomes a new Ranger, they lose access to their old Morpher. I mean, sometimes. The odd times they'll always get it back, but this way he can morph into any form at any given time, and that right there makes him insanely powerful.
Number 10, Bulk and Skull, Purple and Orange Rangers. That's right! Bulk and Skull actually end up becoming Power Rangers as well in the comics. In the show and in the comics, they are both known as being rivals of the other kids at the school, mistreating and picking on the Power Rangers when they are in their civilian forms. Not so nice. But also, Bulk and Skull are actually massive fans of the Power Rangers, kinda like the relationship Flash Thompson had with Peter Parker and his superhero identity of Spider-Man earlier on in the comics. And just like Flash, they also become heroes. Well, at least for a time. And over time they definitely become allies to the Power Rangers, so you know, they become better people as time goes on. Yay! They both helped Zordon with a mission when the Power Rangers were trapped. He made them temporary Rangers by giving them each extremely rare power coins. However, Alpha removes their memories of this incident afterwards, so they themselves do not remember their time on this mission as the Purple and Orange Rangers. Pretty sad considering how much they love the Power Rangers. Alright friends, before we move on to the next spot, it's time to do that cool thing that you do on YouTube and click that like button.
Click it.
So that we know you want more Power Rangers.
Click it.
Yeah.
Click the like button.
Do it.
Number 9, Nick Russell, the Red Mystic Force Ranger. The light that would save the world from darkness, aka the most powerful wizard of all time. His magical abilities kind of automatically put him near the top of the list in terms of powerful rangers, but then he had this really cool, not battleizer, but it technically acted as one. I'm a little fuzzy on how exactly that works, but he has his red Dragonfire Ranger form, which is when he straight up merges with the dragon Fireheart. That sentence I just said sounds so cool, but if you saw him use this form in the show, then you know how cool it looks. Wielding the power of fire itself, being the leader of the Mystic Force Rangers and the son of Leanbow, Nick Russell is super cool and very powerful. Unfortunately, in the comics he doesn't get many chances to really display his power. He and the other Mystic Force Rangers were split off into their own pocket universe, then later he receives Zordon's call through the Morphin Grid and is all the way in the back of a panel of a bunch of other powerful Rangers who rally to Zordon's pocket dimension led by Eric Myers, the Quantum Ranger, for a last stand against Lord Drakon. Then him and the other Mystic Rangers pilot the Titan Megazord during the battle on the moon of the world of the Coinless against Drakon and his Ranger sentries. In at number 8 as well is Trent Mercer, the White Ranger. Trent here is another Ranger who started off his time as a villain, which means he has to have enough power to make him a threat. That's why pretty much all of the anti-hero, once a villain Rangers are kind of OP. Trent specifically has a bunch of abilities that are almost rude. He had the ability of super speed and camouflage, which were the abilities of the Red Ranger and Black Ranger, and he arguably used them way better than those Rangers did. But on top of that, he wielded not one, but 2 Zords, the Dragozord and the Stegozord. Most people can't say that for themselves. Also, having 2 Zords, he even had the capability to combine the 2 of these really powerful Zords into a Megazord that he could pilot all by his lonesome. The Rangers were extremely lucky they were able to sway him over to their side as the White Dino Thunder Ranger, because with his advantages he may have caused the end for them. Also, I just gotta say his design and his Super Dino Mode design are just so cool, and unlike a lot of other designs from the show, his aren't totally ridiculous. Unfortunately for his comic book story, he doesn't play a major role in any story. He and the other Dino Rangers get whisked off into their own pocket universe and at the end of the arc are restored back to their timeline, but we have to at least mention this awesome 6th Ranger.
Number 7, Leo Corbett. Leo is the Red Lost Galaxy Ranger, and the cool thing about him is that he wasn't even supposed to be the Red Ranger. His brother Mike was. But when his brother is about to die, he passes the power onto his little brother. And little did they know that Leo would not only go on to become one of the most powerful Rangers, but one of the greatest Red Rangers ever. A lot of people might have put Mike on this list instead of Leo because he went on to become the Magna Defender, but Leo has proven why he is more powerful time and time again. Not only did he overcome all the odds by becoming the Red Ranger, he overcame his impulsive nature to leap before looking and ended up defeating Trakina by himself at the end of the season. It was amazing and showed just how powerful Leo was. Number 6, Eric Myers. Eric the Quantum Ranger. During Power Rangers Time Force, the Rangers were all looking for the quantum power because of how powerful it was. Eric ended up finding it, and he took it for himself, and of course that didn't sit well with all the other Rangers. He may have butted heads with them on multiple occasions, but he also fought against Ransik. As the Quantum Ranger, he also commanded one of the most powerful Zords around. Well, I guess some have even called it the most powerful, and that's the Q-Rex. He may not have been the one the Rangers wanted, but Eric has proved himself multiple times, and even returned to help all the other Red Rangers during the Forever Red crossover special. Number 4, Kruger. Kruger is part of the Power Rangers SPD team, and also known as the SPD Shadow Ranger. He ran the whole SPD, Space Patrol Delta, unit on Earth before actually joining the team later on. He was technically already powerful without his suit, but when he became the Shadow Ranger, it took his powers to a whole new level. I mean, he took on what was basically an army of Crybots by himself, and he didn't even get hit. Like, come on, that's pretty crazy. I mean, he didn't even have help while he was doing it. He did it all on his own. Add to the fact that he has a really cool costume, and you have not only the strongest SPD Ranger, but just one of the strongest Rangers in general. He has also become super popular. As of the writing of this list, he's the only SPD Ranger to appear in the video game Power Rangers Battle for the Grid.
Number 3, Andros, Red Solar Ranger. Andros is the Red Space Ranger or Red Solar Ranger. In the show, he has not just skills as a fighter, but also has actual superpowers, telekinetic ones that are typical of those who also live out on KO-35, a human colony located in outer space. Andros was also basically like the Silver Surfer with a drill sword. He could use his Galaxy Glider to fly through space, and has a Spiral Saber, which is a sword that's also like a drill, and which could be combined with his laser gun known as his Astro Blaster to make a souped up Spiral Saber, which is pretty cool. Like many others in the comics, Andros' story is basically a continuation of the version we know from the show Power Rangers in Space. At one point, Andros fights to protect his sister after Astronema is defeated, and she becomes free of her evil influence. We later learn that Charon and Astronema, while once the same person, have been split in twain, with Astronema becoming her own entity, freeing Charon from the guilt of Astronema's cruel and evil crimes. However, this turns out to be a genius plot of Andros's to both free his sister and give the people who Astronema hurt what they wanted most: revenge. He created a hard light hologram of Astronema in order to make the people of the court think that she was a separate entity, which they then got to defeat, and that also freed Charon from punishment, although she was not as happy about that. She was like, hey, let me go to jail or be killed. Number 1, the Morphonaut, also known as the Phantom Ranger. This ranger was a mysterious figure whose identity was unrevealed. They appeared in both the Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Turbo shows. The Phantom Ranger hailed from the same homeworld as Zordon, known as Eltar. In the comics, we learned that before he was known as the Phantom Ranger, this ranger had a different alias, the Morphonaut. As the Morphonaut over 10,000 years ago in the past, he was trapped inside the Morphin Grid as a preventative measure to protect others from the evil that lurked around its perimeters. Hundreds of years in the past, the Morphonaut ended up being freed from the Morphin Grid and would go on to help the Squadron Rangers in their fight against the Dark Spectre. Eventually, the Morphonaut became corrupted by Dark Spectre, which he chose to do in order to protect the Squadron Rangers. His armor turned black, and although the Squadron Rangers would later defeat Dark Spectre, freeing the Morphonaut from their influence, the Morphonaut's armor would remain black, and they would take on the name of Phantom Ranger in their new form.